Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Got Rid of the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. As the fans started to arrive in the stadium, the buzz was in the air. Word had spread about the son of the famous Yellow Flash being in the exam, and well, people like to see famous people and those related to them, so of course it was a sold-out stadium. Naruto walked toward the competitors section of the building when a hand landed on his shoulder and he turned and saw Gaara standing there, and Naruto asked, "What's up, Gaara?" Gaara said, "I can't tell you why or what, but if something weird happens during the exams, go with it and act like it was supposed to happen." Naruto got a confused look and asked, "What's going on, Gaara?" Gaara said, "Please, trust me on this, brother, it is important," and he left in a swirl of sand, leaving a confused Naruto behind. Naruto shrugs, wondering what's up, and goes on the rest of his way to the competitor area and stood in line with the 7 other competitors. He looked around and saw a chalkboard with everyone's name. Ebuse, Kurenai, Kotetsu from Konoha, Yugito from Cloud, himself from Whirlpool, and the Iwa team of Ain, a tall boy around 14 with brown hair and brown eyes. Riser, a short boy, bald boy with black eyes around 13 who was pretty heavy, and finally Anna, a girl with black hair and green eyes around 13 years old and medium height. There was no defining features about them besides that. Naruto sighed, trying to figure out Gaara's message, and looked up at the crowd and smirked to himself and thought, it's showtime. Up in the cage booth, the Kazekage, Hokage, Reikage and Tsuchikage were all sitting, and the Reikage asked, "Excuse me, Kazekage-san, but what exactly are we waiting on?" The Kazekage said, "We are merely waiting on our last honored guest to arrive. The Raisenkage." The Tsuchikage chuckled and said, "There is no Raisenkage. My people destroyed that village during the last Great War." A male voice said, "You did destroy the building, but our people still lived on." The Kyuubi was a brilliant woman and made plans for our people to return when the time was right. "Sorry for the delay, but I had to ensure that my council was not going to have a heart attack with me coming out in the open after so many years of preparing." As a figure in full cage cloths walked up wearing white and blue and had the kanji Raisenkage on his hat and the name Judium on his back. The only thing you could see about him was he was tall and had blue eyes. The Tsuchikage said, "Is this some kind of joke?" The Kazekage said, "This is no joke, Tsuchikage-san. The Raisenkage is here as the leader of his people, and if you would look down in the arena you would see he does have a genin in the exams." The Tsuchikage said, "Yes, I have heard all about this person, though I believe the rumors I hear are misleading," with his voice laced with disgust. The Raisenkage said, "Thank you, agent, for allowing my village to join the exams after so many years, Kazekage," as he took a seat near the end by the Hokage. The Kazekage, who was in the middle, stood up, ignoring the slight key coming off the Tsuchikage, and walked to the edge of the booth and said in a loud voice that thanks to a seal on the stand echoed across the stadium, "Welcome everyone to the biannual Chunin exams finals being held here is sooner. We have a number of unique villages represented here today, and I am hoping we have some great matches. Now without further delay, let's have our first match." A proctor walked into the middle of the arena and said, "My name is Shushu Renga and I am the proctor for the final exams. Now the rules are simple. You will fight until your opponent is knocked out, quits, or I call the match. My decision is final. Now would the first 2 competitors please step forward and everyone else go to the waiting area." Naruto looked at Kotetsu and said, "Good luck," as he turned and started walking away. Up in the private VIP boxes, Gaara stood looking down at the field and said, "I hope this works out." Temari, who was sitting behind him, said, "I'm sure it will, Gaara, at least I hope so," as she looked at the item in her lap. When everyone was gone, Shushu said, "The first match is Kotetsu versus Anna. Ready, begin." Kotetsu charged forward, throwing a kunia while Anna dodged, doing hand signs. As Kotetsu got close to Anna, said, "Earth style, earth wall," a wall of earth shot up in front of her. Kotetsu had no time to stop, so he charged chakra to his feet and started climbing the wall. However, this was a mistake as the wall exploded thanks to an exploding tag, forcing him to fly backwards. Anna charged forward and Kotetsu rolled to the side as Akunia went into the sand where he was a moment earlier. Anna, seeing that Kotetsu had his back to her trying to get up, kept charging at him, and when she was about 2 feet away she drew back with Akunia to s him in the back. However, Kotetsu, who had his hands in front of him, did a double mule kick, nailing her right in the chest, knocking her back and knocking the air out of her. Getting up quick after that, he turned to charge her when 3 Bunshin appeared of her, distracting him from the real one. Anna, acting quickly, did a back roll to get to her knees during the distraction and threw Akunia with an exploding tag around it at Kotetsu. Kotetsu smirked to himself and threw a smoke bomb on the ground where he was and started doing hand signs. The Kunia entered the smoke and exploded, blowing the smoke across the arena as well as sand, making it hard to see. A pair of hands shot out of the ground at Anna's feet, catching her, and she was pulled down into the sand. Kotetsu, who jumped out of the sand, put Akunia at her end and said, "Give up." Anna, who was in front of him, smiled and said, "Boom." And suddenly she exploded and Kotetsu found himself flying backwards. When he hit the ground, he laid motionless and looked at the sky, coughing a little, and Anna walked over to him and put Akunia to his heart, and he asked, "How?" Anna said, "When you went to pull me under, I replaced myself and covered my replacement with a Bunshin. I replaced myself with my pouch I dropped when I rolled over a few minutes ago." Shushu said, "Winner Anna." Naruto nods and said, "That was good, but she could have lost also." Mostly to himself. Ebu said, "Why do you seem like you actually like the fact she won? She hurt my teammate." Naruto said, "Kotetsu got Sai and paid the price. He assumed she was helpless when he pulled her under the ground and let his guard down. Never do that until the match is over or you could get yourself ked." Genma, who had came with the others and now was back with his team, said, "Naruto right. He let his guard down and it cost him, and the match could have went either way. It was a rookie mistake that even some older shinobi still make." Back down in the stadium, Shushu said, "Would the next competitors please come down?" Naruto saw Yugito walking down the stairs, said, "Good luck, kitty cat, don't lose," as Yugito shot him an evil look. Genma asked, "What was that about?" Naruto said, "Just pissing Nibby off. Like he was talking about the weather." Genma got wide-eyed and said, "Nibby, as in Nibby no Neko, the two-tailed cat demon." Naruto said, "Yeah, what of it?" as he looked at the arena as her and Raiza prepared to fight. Genma asked, "Are you crazy, picking a fight with a demon?" Naruto shot him a look and said, "Relax, by the end of the day the demon will be S. I have everything taken care of." The Cloud Junin said, "You sure seem confident, boy, either that or a death wish." Naruto said, "We shall see." Here they go, drawing everyone's attention back to the arena. Shushu said, "Begin." Yugito jumped back doing hand signs and said, "Raiten style, lighting strike," and shot out a lightning bolt out of both hands. Raiza finished his hand signs and said, "Earth style, earth dragon," and a dragon of earth came up and charged the lightning, destroying it as it exploded. Yugito ran throughout the explosion and punched Raiza, who was not expecting her to charge yet, right in the face to fly backwards. She continued to chase him and channeling chakra to her fingers, SD Raiza across the chest, spinning his shirt and skin as he jumped back. Raiza winced and said, I will K you for that," as he pulled out Akunia. Yugito charged him and ducked under the mad slash Raiza used and grabbed him by the end, lifting him off the ground and slamming him into the ground behind him. She then twisted his end still in her hand, king him. She then got wide-eyed a moment and sighed before she stood up and turned to leave. Up in the cage booth, the Raisenkage said, "You sure have a Spitfire one there, Raikage." The Raikage said, "Yes, Shush is unusually determined today," as he followed her with his eyes. Shushu checked Raiza and said, "Winner by death, Yugito." Naruto looked down and Kurenai said, "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" Naruto said, "Yes, her next match will be against me after I take out a vein over there," motioning with his head. Kurenai sighed and said, "Be careful," in a quiet voice. Naruto said, "No promises," in an equally quiet voice. After Raiza's body was taken away, Shushu said, "Next competitors please." Kurenai looked at Ebus and said, "Good luck. You will need it." Ebus said, "After I win, you have to agree to go on a date with me." "Deal." Kurenai put her finger to her chin like she was thinking and said, "If you win," as she gave Naruto a wink. Naruto screamed, "I got $20,000 on Kurenai, any takers?" as he looked at the crowd. A man who Naruto recognized as the trans said, I will take that bet, kid. I need to get my money back from you somehow. Naruto said, what you got to lose this time? I already took your money and your business. Trans said, I got money off of the first 2 matches. I'm on a roll. Naruto said, fine, it's a bet, as he turned to look at the match. Ebu smirked and said, I hope you're ready for our date, baby. Anko and Kakashi looked at each other and burst out laughing, drawing the attention of everyone around them. Hiashi asked, what's so funny? Itachi smirked and said, if Kurenai somehow loses, Naruto will KO Ebu's just for the hell of it. Kakashi said, I think he will permanently maim him myself. Anko said, I think Kurenai going to castrate him personally. Kurenai smirked as Shushu started the match, doing hand signs extremely fast, raising a few eyebrows as she disappeared into a haze, making Ebu stop. He put his hands in a ram seal and said, Kai, and got wide-eyed as he had to dodge to the right as a brick of all things came flying at his face. As he looked around, he asked, what the hell was that about, and where the hell did you get a brick? The sky began to cloud over and he looked up and wind started to blow through the arena, making the sand start to cover things, and Ebus was looking around frantically. Kurenai's voice drifted through the arena and said, Forest of Lost Souls no Jutsu, as suddenly the entire arena shifted from a stadium to the Forest of Death. Naruto paled and said, she didn't. Genma asked, what? Naruto said, it's nothing, don't worry about it, as he stepped back a little, closing his eyes, drawing the other competitors' attention. Ebus tried to dispel it agent and asked, what's going on, Kurenai? What the deal about putting a genjutsu up? Kurenai's voice said, you will see, and suddenly 20 figures all wearing rain forehead protectors and mask on their face appeared out of the ground. Each took out a kunia and drawed back to throw it. Ebus started dodging, not sure if they were real or not, and got nicked in the arm, leg and back. He tried to dispel the genjutsu agent by putting his hands in a ram seal and saying, Kai. But nothing happened. He tried to bite his lip and still did not work. He was receiving more cuts and finally had enough, and he took out a kunia and threw it while doing hand seals and said, Kage kunai no jutsu. And the kunai multiplied from 1 to 20 and went through all of the illusions, not hitting anything. He turned and did it agent to the left and right in a perfect triangle, but still was getting cuts across his back and arms, and he could not figure out where they were coming from. Kurenai appeared behind him and hit him in the back of the end, knocking him out, and she asked, so do I win? Shushu said, winner, Kurenai, and the crowd cheers. Kurenai looks at the body at her feet and kicks Ebus in the ribs, waking him up, and said, come on, as she walked back to the stairs. Naruto saw her as she made it to the balcony and said, that was over. You could have ended the match at any time since you were crouched down behind him all the time. Kurenai said, hey, I owed him for what spying on me and what he said in the Forest of Death that day. Naruto held up his hands and said, agreed, but you still went overboard. However, did you have to use my memory of the rain tree in the Forest of Death as your basis? Kurenai's eyes narrowed and said, whatever do you mean? In a sickeningly sweet voice. Naruto nods and said, I know. Shut up. Genma looked at Kurenai and asked, Kurenai, where did you learn that? Kurenai said, I made it. Why? Ebus said, I couldn't find you or dispel it. Kurenai said, that's the point. As she wobbled and started to fall, only for Naruto to catch her and set her down against the wall and said, a little too much chakra drain to keep it up though. Shushu said, would the last 2 competitors for the first round please come down, still sounding a little shaken. Naruto starts to head down but stops and said, give my money you owe me to Kurenai Trand, as he continued down to the arena floor. Up in the cage's booth, the Raikage said, my, that was an interesting jutsu, I wonder how she was able to create such a thing, as he looked at the Hokage. The Hokage said, she has always had a unique skill at genjutsu. I would not be surprised if she becomes known as the best genjutsu user in the world before long. The Raisenkage said, I would have to agree. The Kazekage said, though I wonder where the idea for such a thing came from. The Hokage said, that is for her to know, I believe, as he looks down at the arena. The Raisenkage said, well, this is what everyone has been waiting to see. The return of a legend, making everyone look at him for a moment. When Naruto got there, he saw a Vayne standing waiting for him. Naruto reached for a scroll on his vest, already having it in hand, and a Vayne said, I won't be tricked by your water jutsu Namikas. Naruto said, we shall see. Shushu said, begin, as he jumped back. Naruto threw the scroll into the air, already putting his hands in a ram seal, sending a chakra pulse everywhere around him, activating the scroll, and suddenly water shot out of it to cover the area as it acted like a water hose with nothing to stop it from shooting water everywhere. Up in the stands, several people raised eyebrows. A vein shot forward toward Naruto with a kunai in his hand, forcing Naruto to block with his own, and a vein said, "Now I got you. You can't use jutsu without both hands." Naruto smirked and said, "You might have been right had I not faced someone with an ice bloodline once," as he started doing one-hand signs, making all the shinobi in the stands wide-eyed. Naruto finished and without saying a word made a mist cover the area as he kicked a vein and jumped back. Naruto smirked as he created 5 Kyuubi, having them circle a vein and started off each of them, saying together while releasing a little key, "To bad for you, I also met someone who was a master of the art of Silent King. Now I could already end this match since you are obviously not scared at detecting chakra signatures, and with my jutsu I'm using you can't tell where the real me is, but I want to give the people a show." Naruto then jumped out of the mist so everyone but Avain, who was still in the mist, could see, and he started doing hand signs, and suddenly the mist faded and 25 Mizu Bunshin appeared MXED in with the Kyuubi. Avain looked and said, "What is this? You don't ever say the name of the jutsu you're using, and what's with the Bunshins?" Naruto said, "Did you know that you actually don't have to do that? Truth is, the only reason you do that is so your allies know what jutsu you are using and can either aid you or get out of the way, but since this is a one-on-one battle and I have no allies down here, I don't have to worry about that." Avain smirked and started doing hand signs and said, "Earth. Slingshots." Suddenly boulders of earth about 2 feet wide shot out of the ground in a circle 20 feet wide around him, destroying the Mizubunsen and the Kyuubi, and started to fly toward Naruto, who was still sitting on the wall. Naruto waited and leaped off and landed on the first boulder before jumping to the next and the next, getting closer and closer to Avain, who was starting to get worried since he felt sure he could keep Naruto away or hit him with this jutsu. Naruto made it to the last 5 boulders, and then to the surprise and shock of everyone, he spinned forward using chakra on his feet to hold the boulder that he was standing on back at Avain, forcing him to drop the jutsu and dodge. Avain rolled and then stood up and asked, "What the hell was that? You trying to commit S?" Naruto, who did a handspring after falling from the boulder, stood up as he landed on his feet and charged forward and ducked under a punch Avain threw, and brought his arm around, grabbing the back of Avain's end, bringing his knee up as he brought Avain face down and smacked him together. And then he ran up Avain's body using chakra to hold himself as he made Avain a human springboard to launch himself back into the air from where he originally came, pulling out a kunai and throwing it at Avain and doing hand signs as it multiplied from 1 to 30, forcing Avain to jump out of the way. Naruto landed and did a little sway to the left and then the right in slow motion as he charged chakra through his body before he rubbed the seal of a spiral on his hand and said, "Release." And suddenly he disappeared as a dust trail did zigzags through the arena, approaching Avain, who started throwing weapons, trying to predict where Naruto actually was since he could not see him, that were being dodged by the high-speed fighter approaching him. Up in the stand, Itachi whistled and said, "Damn, that's Junin level speed." Kakashi said, "H is playing with him." Before anyone could say something, an explosion of something hitting the wall at high speed drew everyone's attention, and Naruto was seen standing in the middle of the ring with 1 foot held high about chest height, and Avain was nowhere to be seen. Shushu looked and said, "Winner by Naruto." Up in the Kage booth, the Tsuchikage said, "That was interesting. He used the water jutsu to draw the attention away from himself before he used his opponent's jutsu against him, and then he ran at high speeds to take out the opponent. It seems that he is similar to his father in that respect, but I don't see him anywhere near as good as his father was, and is such a disappointment." The Raisenkage said, "Do you honestly think Naruto needs the Haraishin to use against one of your genin? I doubt it." Down with the guest, Hiash activated his eyes and paled and said, "He created a 30-foot wide spider web in the wall with the boy's body." Inoiki said, "I'm actually glad I decided to come. This has been an interesting exam so far." Itachi said, "It has, but I believe the real fight will be in a little while," making almost everyone wonder what he meant. Down in the arena, Kurenai looked across at Anna and Shushu said, "Begin." Kurenai put her hands together and snapped them, and Anna, who was in a defensive position, had a kunai ready and waited as she looked at Kurenai. Kurenai said, "Well, let's dance," as she did some hand signs and disappeared from view. Before Anna had a chance to think, trees started to grow from the ground and held her in place, and Kurenai appeared above her with a kunai in hand held at Anna's end and said, "This match is over." Anna, who felt the blade against her end but not enough to cut the skin or cancel the genjutsu, swallowed lightly and said, "I give up." Kurenai said, "Good girl," as she patted Anna on the shoulder before jumping back and cancelling the genjutsu. Shushu looked at his watch, seeing it was only 30 seconds, and said, "Winner Kurenai." Up in the Kage booth, the Raisin Kage said, "I see that she is very scared in genjutsu. That is an A rank, I do believe." The Hokage said, "It is. I'm surprised you knew that." The Raikage asked, "What was that jutsu, if you don't mind me asking, since she also did not call out her attacks?" The Raisin Kage said, "Sorry, can't tell you," making the Raikage narrow his eyes. Shushu said, "Would the last two competitors of the semi-finals please come to the ring?" As Naruto went to the arena, Gaara said, "Well, it's time," as he left in a swirl of sand, leaving Temari and Kankuro in the VIP room. Kankuro asked, "How did he do it? I still don't understand." Temari said, "I don't know, but I'm glad he did," as she starts tapping the item in her lap. Naruto looked at Yugito, who was looking around for a moment before nodding once to herself. The Raisin Kage did some one-hand signs and made it where everyone's voice would carry to the crowd and said, "How about a little wager, Raikage-san?" The Raikage looked at the Raisin Kage and asked, "What kind of wager?" The Raisin Kage said, "How about the winner takes not only the loser's forbidden scroll but also the ninja that loses the match?" The Raikage said, "Why would I risk my village's forbidden scroll for some no-rank jutsu?" The Raisin Kage said, "No rank, huh? I figured the Hiraishin, Rasengan, Kijibunshin, Suten, Bloodwave and Kazabunshin would be interesting enough for you, but as I see it, you're too scared. After all, your best ninja did lose his life when he tried to kill a 3-year-old, even after you had been given patrol routes as well as the exact location of the child." Down in the audience, Hyuga looked up at the Kage booth with narrowed eyes. The Raikage said, "I don't know what you're talking about." The Raisin Kage said, "Of course not. I mean, it was not supposed to be a K-ping but an actual assassination, wasn't it?" The Hokage knew what was being said but kept his mouth shut to see how this played out. The Raikage said, "You need to mind your own business." The Raisin Kage put his finger to his chin and said, "Now correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it the girl's family council who gave you that mission and then you decided to use it as a chance to take the girl's eyes instead? Mighty greedy of you if you ask me, backstabbing your client like that. No wonder the Cloud Village has to get support from Iwa. I mean, I hear you're nothing but a puppet cage taking orders from the Tsuchi Kage here." The Raikage said, "I am not a puppet cage." The Raisin Kage said, "Really, then why did you son screw up that K-ping?" The Raikage, who was pissed, said, "It was not a screw up, those damn bastard betrayed us and did not keep the girl's FA," as he realized what he was saying. The Raisin Kage smirked and said, "So how about that bet? Do you think your precious little Jinchuriki can go up against the son of the legendary Yellow Flash and win?" The Raikage said, "Fine, I will take the bet." The Raisin Kage said, "Good, and thanks for informing the entire audience that it was in fact that family's council that wanted the girl ked. I would never have been able to convince her father of it otherwise. I guess I can cancel the voice amplifier jutsu now," as he put his hands in a ramsil and said, "Kai." Suddenly the shout of F echoed across the arena. Hyash's fists were clenched as he heard all this and said, "Horts, when we return to Konoha, I want the entire branch household to gather and execute the council." A Hyuga in his late 40s said, "It will be done, Hyashasama." Naruto waited, and after the Kage spoke he nods to himself and Shushu said, "Begin." Naruto started doing hand signs at speeds that made everyone pale since only 2 people caught them, and Naruto said, "Kamaitake," cutting whirlwind technique, and slashed his arms forward and blades of wind started flying at Yugito, forcing her to dodge and still got cuts across her. Naruto put his hands together and said, "Kijibunshin no Jutsu," and 25 Kijibunshin appeared and they circled her and started doing hand seals together and said as one, "Kamaitake," as hundreds of blades of wind shot at Yugito, cutting her and ruining her cloths. Suddenly one of the Kijibunshin went up in smoke and Naruto said, "I see," as he dispelled the rest. Yugito, who was on her knees hurting from the attack, looked at Naruto and asked, "What the hell did you stop your attack for?" Naruto said, "I got the information I was wanting, so I did not need them anymore. Now I am tired of playing with you, little girl. I want to fight Nibi no Neko." making everyone in the audience who knew anything about demons wide-eyed. Yugito said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Naruto had stopped walking toward her and said, "So the great Nibi is hiding behind a human. I guess when they say you're a scaredy cat they were taking her as an example." Inside Yugito, Nibi was getting upset at Naruto. Naruto smirked as he felt the demon chakra spike and he said, "What's wrong, Nibi? Dog got you tongue, or are you afraid I might soak you?" "I bet that's it. Nibi is afraid of my water jutsu." Yugito clenched her nails and said, "You screwing up." Naruto saw her eyes flashed and said, "Still hiding behind a weak little human, Nibi? Why don't you use a real body to come out and fight me?" "Oh, that's right, I bet you don't have one. Lost it when you got sealed, huh? I guess that's all you can expect from a low-class demon like you." Yugito had purple chakra coming off of her and the ki was getting enough to start making people have trouble breathing. Naruto thought, time to set the trap, and said, "Well, if you want to come out so bad and prove me wrong, Nibi, just have the girl here create the most advanced bunshin just as she knows with nothing but your chakra and force your spirit through the seal," as he put his hand behind his back and said, "Or are you too scared to fight a little human like me?" Yugito chakra spiked 10 feet into the air and Yugito grabbed her head for a moment and said, "Fine, it's your funeral," as she did 6 hand signs and said, "Raiten, bunshin." A loud thunder could be heard as a bolt of lightning struck the ground across the arena floor and the 30-foot tall figure of the Nibi no Neko could be seen. Naruto, who was only about 5 feet from Yugito, said, "Good." As he dashed for Yugito, much to the surprise and shock of everyone, and he grabbed the top of her shirt with one hand, tearing it off of her, exposing her sports bra underneath, and Naruto brought the hand that was behind his back forward and slammed it right over her heart, yelling, "5-star seal." But to his and everyone else's shock, the moment he removed his hand, Yugito body exploded and body parts flew in every direction as blood splashed over Naruto, and before he had time to think about it, he had used a seal on his hand to make a kunia appear in his hand and threw it at the far wall before disappearing in a yellow flash as Nibi claw swiped where he used to be. Nibi said, "Well, little human, where's your confidence now?" Naruto smirked as he stood up looking at Nibi and said, "You don't know it, Nibi, but you're already S. Once that body runs out of chakra you will S. Since your anchor to this world no longer exists, you will pass on to the next world." Nibi yelled and said, "Well, that may be human, but I will kill you if it's my last thing I do." Naruto bit his thumb, ignoring the blood all over him, and started doing hand signs and slammed his hands into the ground and said, "Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning jutsu," and suddenly he found himself on top of Gambunta, who looked at Nibi and then at Naruto and said, "You hate me, don't you, Naruto? This is what, the 4th one we faced." Naruto said, "I think it's actually 5th, but who's counting? All I really need you to do is soak the L cat. She has an electric body and once it's out of chakra shushes S." The Raikage was ready to have a stroke after seeing Yugito body blow up like that, but now to hear what Naruto was saying, he realized he was screwed. Gambunta inhales and shoots several balls of water at Nibi, and when they hit, Nibi cries out and explodes as lightning strikes the area around where it once stood. Naruto sweet drops and said, "You got to be sting me, that was too easy." Gambunta took out his pipe and looked at it and then hit it against the walls and said, "I need to switch brands, this one is making me see things," as he goes up in smoke, making Naruto fall to the arena floor. Shushu looks at the body of Yugito and then at Naruto and said, "Winner by explosion, Naruto." Naruto wobbles a little and said, "Hey Proctor, I'm almost out of chakra, so I'm forfeiting the next match." Kurenai, who was passed out from using too much chakra, had not heard it, and Genma said, "Let her sleep." The crowd's cheers for his victory SD out after he said that, but then they cheered Agent since it was a good battle. Naruto walked up to where Kurenai was and Gaara appeared in front of him and said, "You need to come with me," as he puts his hand on Naruto's shoulder and both leave in a swirl of sand. Naruto blinks as they reappear in what looks like a cellar, and he looks and said, "What the hell?" as he sees the body of Yugito on a table. Gaara said, "I can explain when the others get here." Just then Kankuro arrived with Kurenai, and Temari appeared with someone who made Naruto wide-eyed before he passed out. When Naruto came to, he noticed he was still on the floor and he was looking at the ceiling. He blinked and asked, "What the hell just happened?" A male voice said, "You saw something and fainted," drawing Naruto attention, and he blinked and said, "How in the 9 levels of hell are you alive?" in a calm yet barely restrained voice. The person said, "Well, it seems your friend Gaara had something to do with it." I guess he should explain it while I talk with your mother, pointing to the other side of Naruto, making him turn his head and go wide-eyed Asian, and in a commanding voice he said, "You got 1 minute Tankuki before I shove a Rasengan instead of a Kunia up your ass to explain how both my parents are alive as well as Arashi," as he looked at his son being held by who he guessed was his mother, who was sitting talking to both Temari and Kurenai. Gaara said, "It's like this." Flashback. It was the night before the finals and Yugito was standing on the roof of a building looking at the village, and she said, "You can come out now. I know you're there," as she turned and looked at the shadows of the building roof entrance. Gaara stepped out and said, "I am glad to see you are scared." Yugito asked, "Who are you?" Gaara said, "My name is Sabaku no Gaara. I came to give you an offer." Yugito blinked and asked, "Why would the son of the Kazekage want to give me an offer?" Gaara said, "I have heard that the Nibi has the ability to bring the S back to life. Is this true?" Yugito said, "Maybe, why?" Gaara said, "I know you heard about the threat of Akatsuki to the Jinchuriki, and because of this threat I know that Naruto Namikaze has told you and Nibi that he plans to K1 or both of you tomorrow. Believe me when I say he does have a way to do it, and it does work. I have seen it done before." Yugito said, "Why are you here?" Gaara said, "My deal is simple. I can make it where you and Nibi will both live past tomorrow. In return you must do 3 things. Yugito said, "Are you so sure that Naruto will be able to beat me?" Gaara said, "Naruto has beaten the Rokubi at full power before and has beaten me when I used Shukaku. Both times he never once had to use the Kyuubi that is inside of him. I do not doubt he can do as he said he will, and he never goes back on his word," in a strong commanding voice. Yugito was quiet and thought, "What should we do?" Nibi said, "Listen to his deal. It might be good for us." Yugito said, "All right, what is this deal you propose?" "I'm not saying I agree to it, but I am listening." Gaara said, "I will arrange it where everyone will believe that you S tomorrow in the exams. I will replace you with a prisoner who is sentenced to be executed after the exams at the exact moment Naruto goes to seal off the Nibi from you. I will then take you to a place to wait until the exams are over and the Raikage leaves believing you are S." Yugito asked, "Why do that?" Gaara said, "Don't play dumb with me, girl. I know the life of a Jinchuriki and the pain and loneliness it contains. I also know that if you don't accept my offer and lose tomorrow, providing he does not K you both, that you will most likely be KED the moment you return for being a failure." Yugito sighed and said, "So besides faking my death, what is this deal?" Gaara said, "I want 3 people brought back to life and free of the demon's influence. I also want you to agree to join Whirlpool as a ninja and be trustworthy of it. If you accept and betray it, I will K you myself. Don't worry, you will be accepted, and if not, you can always join either Konoha or Suna. The last thing you have to agree to have one of these," raising his shirt showing a seal beside the seal holding Shukaku, "put on you." Yugito asked, "What is that seal?" Gaara said, "It's a failsafe. If you are ever about to be captured by Akatsuki, you activate the seal and it will K you and Nibi, so that way they can't K you and extract the Nibi." Yugito was about to say something when Nibi said in her head, "What do they want with me, and what will happen when you ask him those questions?" Yugito asked them and Gaara said, "They want to turn you into a slave. The leader of Akatsuki was able to control Kyuubi for 20 years, and he has invented an immortality jutsu so he can control you all if he chooses to, and you will remain locked in a statue, only allowed to come out to do his bidding and then return to the statue. That is if you are not KED tomorrow, of course. Now if we K Akatsuki and you wonder what will happen to you after Yugito SS. Simple, US also. The 6 Jinchuriki that are on the planet right now will be the last ones. When we S out, there will never be another Jinchuriki agent. Naruto plans to K the 3 that are free and make sure that none of the demons can escape the humans. He has reinforced mine and his own seal, and if you accept my deal he will do the same to yours, making it where you can use more of the demon's chakra but make sure the demon can't eventually break free. Now you have heard my proposal. Do you accept or S tomorrow?" Nibi was quiet a moment and asked, "Why should I trust them?" Gaara smirked and said, "You don't have a choice. It's either accept or S." After Yugito played middleman. End flashback. Gaara said, "And she accepted." It was actually pretty easy to, from what your Yugito said. The Shinigami actually never even complained. Why I don't know, but when he was summoned to give back your dad, Nibi said he seemed almost happy. Naruto looked at Yugito and asked, "Why is she asleep?" Minato said, I put the seal on her you designed and it drained her chakra pools. Naruto said, did you reinforce it with an 4-star elephant seal, as he got up and walked over to Yugito body. Minato said, of course Rokudaime Hokage or should I call you Judium Raisin Kajisama, making everyone tense and look at him. Kurenai asked, how do you know about that, in a quiet voice. Kushina said, the reason the Shinigami was so willing to let us come back is because H is a little pissed at Konoha for doubting his work. He also allowed us to watch all of Naruto life so we know everything about what's going on including the sands of time. By the way, welcome to the family Temari and Kurenai, Minato and I both approve. The little blonde hair red-tipped blue-eye boy looked up and asked, does this mean I have 2 mommies now? Kurenai smiled and said, yes, you have 2 mommies and grandparents Arashi, as Temari hugged him. Arashi said, I hope they don't drink and write those dirty books, as he scunched up his nose. Naruto whistles and said, you redirected the secondary seal. I'm impressed. So what are we going to do now that you 3 are here? Kurenai, Temari and I can't exactly claim Arashi right now and how do we explain you being alive? Minato said, leave that to me. That will be all for this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos, goodbye.